Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, the Worthing RunFest 10k, all of the action from my first ever 10 kilometre running race, and boy was this absolutely painful, and I took a big swing to go for a fast time in this one. First ever one, I made some mistakes. You can see I'm looking down at my watch right then thinking, boy oh boy, this is a spicy pace, and I didn't quite have the minerals to push on. So you can see me looking over my shoulder there. I was looking over my shoulder because there was a gap behind me, but also I didn't quite have the minerals or the balls to latch on to this front group because I was looking at my watch and I could see these guys were shifting sub 3 minutes. But where I made the mistake in this race is pre-race I decided to go to ChatGPT and ask what he thought or she thought I could run a 10 kilometre running race in, and the goal time was like 34:58 to 35:58. So I thought, I'm going to take a swing in this race, I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to try and hit a sub 35. Now that was extremely optimistic, having never done one before, and my 5k PB is 16:58 at a park run. But yeah, I committed to it and went for it, and I'm above that pace right now. And I think this first kilometre, you can see I've dropped off the guy in the red vest here, and I was just umming and ahhing every time. Should I go with him? Should I hang back a little bit? Because although you're like pushing to try and get like a really good time, you also know if you go too deep, you're Shell City. But we went through that first kilometre in a 3:10, and I had to let the guy in front go because that is 13 seconds faster than if I wanted to like equally split this race. 17:30. I was like 13 seconds up at this point. The problem was that I ended up in absolutely no man's land. There was a little group behind me, so we hit this first corner and I absolutely slung it round there, grabbed onto the fence and slung myself round. But when we turned, boy oh boy, it was a savage headwind. So this course, it goes like down, tailwind down, turn, headwind, and then you've got some like side roads to tackle and stuff like that. And when you hit the headwind, it was absolutely brutal. I was just like thinking, when is someone going to latch on to me? When's someone going to come round me? But we came through the second kilometre still in like good pace, and we were still on for that sub 35. And at this point, you're like feeling all right. You're like, this ain't too bad, you know. It's not too bad. The pace dropped off a little bit after the first K, but yeah, I was digging in, and then you can see the two leaders there. So the gap wasn't huge after 2.5K. Well, I say it wasn't huge, but they looked like professional runners in my eyes. I was probably one of the only guys that didn't have a vest on, so you can tell the standard. But yeah, we came around this corner, hit the tailwind again, and I was like, thank God. But if you look on the left, there was a couple of runners and a couple of other guys coming down now. So in my head, I'm sort of thinking, eventually, if I just settle into a rhythm now, when they catch me, I can latch on. My heart rate is peaked right now, 185. Boy, oh boy, is George about to blow his biscuit. And to be honest, it was sort of poorly paced, but at the same time, in my head, it was just optimistic. I thought I could do a sub 35 for my first outing. Oh, Barry Big Balls here. But honestly, these two guys come round me here, and I was just like, just jump on, get in the slipstream and try and get towed along. We went through the first 3K, so we went 3:14, 3:22, 3:27, and we were still on for a sub 35 at this point, but the pace was starting to slow. These sections here, I don't know how, because it felt like it should have been a crosswind, but it felt like it was still into the wind here. So I was just like digging in, trying to jump on, and this is where I made the massive mistake. It was a warm day. We're running at like, I think it's about 11:20. We come up to the first drink station, and I decided not to get a drink, not to even throw it over my head. You see me look down at my watch there, I'm panicking at how high my heart rate is now. There's not a lot to go, but you saw the guy in the black jersey threw it over his head, and I decided not to, and that was a big mistake because I started overheating, burning up towards the end of this race. It's surprising how quickly you can overheat in a running race, just where you're pushing so hard. But yeah, I decided not to take the drink. Lesson learned. The reason why I decided not to take it is because when I've taken a drink in half marathons before, it felt like I was drowning. Trying to swallow a drink while at max heart rate is not easy. So it's something I need to practice as well. But yeah, I was digging in right now for a top 10. I'm in the top 10 in this race. You can see me looking down at my watch thinking, oh no, we hit the 4K mark, another 3:34. And the boys started to pick up. They started to pick up, and I had given all my beans in that first 4.3k. So it was literally like a case of, in the moment, you're like, I've got to stay with them. I've got to stay with them, because when we hit a headwind, I need someone to draft off. But honestly, I just couldn't accelerate. I couldn't get onto their heels, and I just had to let them go. But I could see behind me there were some other runners coming up, and I'm still clinging on for dear life for a top 10 right now. And I'm thinking, bloody hell, I'm ready to go to the Olympics here. Top 10, we went through the 5k, and I think we done the first 5k in 17:14, and yeah, that was only 18 seconds, I think, quick maths, 16 seconds off my 5k personal best. And boy oh boy, was I in a hole right now. I was having to rein it in big time. I was slightly concerned because I was in so much pain that I wasn't going to make it to the finish. Honestly, the most painful exercise thing I've ever done in my life, running a 10k. But this guy come round, and I managed to sit on his heels for all of 10 seconds before I realised I've got to let him go as well. And right now, it was just damage limitation. It is like when you go for something, go for the unknown. Sometimes you've just got to take a swing. Sometimes you miss. And sometimes you bloody suffer. And I suffered like a dog. I don't know why the slope is saying -8 right now. This race was flat as a pancake. But yeah, at this point now, I think I am clinging on to probably 9th position, 10th position, something like that. So absolutely wicked, considering there's over 1,200 people in this race. But I am about to go backwards. There was nothing I could do. I gave it the swing, and yeah, I was paying for it right now. You can see the leader on the left here. He is absolute Giselle, as I can put it. He was floating like a butterfly. That guy was rapido. It was ridiculous. But eventually I got to the end corner, turned, and I could see a little group of 2 coming up behind me, and I thought, as soon as they catch me up, I've got to just bridge on. But the pace had started to drop off now. We're into like 3:41 kilometres, and yeah, it was only going to get slower when we hit the headwind. I was trying absolutely everything right now, but honestly, once it goes, you are just in survival mode, absolute survival mode. And I'm looking round like, oh my God, people are catching me. And here's the other 2 guys, they caught me, and I was like, right, you got to get on this now, George. Come on, suffer. You've got just over 3k of pain. But they were shifting. And these 2 runners here, I think is the group, if I could have clung on to them, they were pretty close to a sub 35, but you can see they've paced it so well. They're starting to look like they're picking up now. I am fading. I'm signed, sealed, delivered, dispatched, ladies and gentlemen, and I honestly felt like crying right now, because I've never experienced discomfort like this. Like, my legs were screaming at me, my lungs were screaming at me, and I could still see the leader, which was a bit of a surprise. But honestly, we hit this final turn, and I could see another couple of runners coming, and it was a stinking headwind. And someone asked me once, they were like, do you actually get any benefit from drafting and running? Absolutely, it is wild. So anyway, white vest man comes round me and I was like, right, tuck in. The wind was sort of like into off the left hand side, and I'm just thinking, I've got to stay with this guy for as long as possible because this headwind is killing me right now. And he was, this is the battle now for 11th place, but you'll see in a second, white vest man, I think he picks up. Once that gap starts to open, there's nothing Georgie boy can do. I am on the absolute limit, and yeah, if I'd paced this right, if I'd known that maybe a slightly slower target than the sub 35, because spoiler alert, your boy did not get sub 35 as you can see, but yeah, white vest man starts to pick up here. I am looking down at my watch, I am panicking, I'm looking round, I'm looking for help. I'm like, someone give me a push or someone carry me. But yeah, honestly, once that gap opens, he is gone. And then the next lad comes past me just here. What I didn't realise is he was a junior, and the only drafting I was getting off this lad was my shins, I think, unfortunately. He was quite a fair bit younger than me, but a seriously good runner, and yeah, I got no drafting, so I had to let him go because it was damage limitation now. I know what you're thinking, it's only like 5 more minutes of running from this point, but yeah, once the legs go, the legs are gone. I am absolutely Paula Radcliffe right now. My head's swinging and I am just trying to limit the damage now. I've dropped back into 13th place and my goal was just to try and stay as close to these. Look, the young lad nearly got absolutely swiped by that pedestrian then. Bloody hell, that was close. But yeah, this bit was just pure carnage because on the right hand side you've got the half marathon runners, then you've got all the pedestrians walking, and you were sort of like half worried that you were going to get taken out by one of them, but I managed to limit the damage, and then it was just the final kick to the line, and ladies and gentlemen, there was hardly any kick. I came down this bit, the atmosphere on the finish bit was absolutely unreal. You like went round into the corner in a second, everyone cheering, it was so good. And it makes me want to do more racing. Racing is so fun, but I remember looking at my watch here, seeing the wife on the side of the road cheering me on just there, and I thought, I've got to give it some beans, show her that I mean business. And look, I started to close the gap to the young lad in front, but unfortunately he then started to kick and I had nothing. But what a wicked experience. I got the pacing horribly wrong, but we did still get a 35.42 and the worst pain of my life, which makes every training session a hell of a lot easier now, so that is a win. But 35.42 and 13th place out of 1,200 runners, absolutely wicked. I hope you've enjoyed this little race review and I will catch you in the next video.